So even when you think, you've got all the knowledge and you're on top of things, if you're not paying close attention, it can really sneak up on you and mess some things up. And, here I was slugging through the whole winter, just blaming it on winter, right? Blaming it on winter, the blues, the age, all this stuff. And it turned out to be something real physiological.
You're listening to Make Some Noise podcast, episode number 503 with guest Teralyn Sell. Welcome to Make Some Noise podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm so glad that you're here. I hope that you're well. I hope that this 4 or 5% so far that we are into 2023 has been amazing for you. And I wanted to tell you that coming up this year, I have 2 really amazing things that are very much the same, but the delivery is going to be completely different. So you all know that I am certified in the work of Dr. Brené Brown. Her methodology is called The Daring Way, based on her book, Daring Greatly, which is a 12-module process that I take people through that is around courage, vulnerability, and shame resilience. It's amazing. I've been facilitating it since 2014. So last year, you may have known I did a retreat after having not done one for many years. It was phenomenal. And I'm going to host another one in the fall. I'm also going to be doing this online, which I also haven't done in a long time. And I want to make sure that if you want to get in on it, that you don't miss it. So if you head on over to andreaowen.com/retreat, there is a button on that page. Well, first you can read all about the curriculum and what it is. There's a button on there where you can sign up for early notification on the retreat, but I'm also going to be emailing that list first because I'm offering the online version first. So that's going to be the notification, people. There's going to be an early bird price for both the retreat and the online Daring Way program. Hope this isn't confusing. I really hope this makes sense. Anyway, signing up does not obligate you to purchase either the online program or the retreat, but it will ensure that you hear about it very first and that you get in on that early bird pricing. So andreaowen.com/retreat. The online version is going to be 6 weeks long. We will meet twice a week, probably in the evening, because I know a lot of you have regular 9-to-5 jobs. And we'll get through the 12 modules that way. And then, of course, the retreat is going to be in person. It's going to be here in North Carolina, most likely in Asheville again, with around, 8 to 10 women. And I'm really excited. I love this curriculum so much. I believe in it fiercely. I absolutely love facilitating it. And the women always get so much out of it, including a step-by-step process in order to manage a lot of the behaviors that we don't like that we do, that you probably read about, and how to stop feeling like shit, and just a way to manage really difficult situations. All right. We are still on the women's health theme. That I almost forgot the word theme. Is anybody else in that place in your life when you're forgetting words that you use all the time? Anyway. All right. Dr. Teralyn is here, and it was such a great conversation. I've just been learning so much from these guests. I hope that you are too. So let me tell you a little bit about her for those that are new to her work. As a practicing therapist for almost 2 decades, it wasn't until Dr. Teralyn went into private practice that she noticed her clients, who were primarily women, were getting sicker and sicker despite therapy and medication. She knew there was something really wrong with that picture, so she set out to find alternative solutions that actually helped them. That's when she began to study what impacts the brain. Dr. Teralyn finds the root of their issues so they can actually feel better by combining functional medicine and psychology. So without further ado, here is Dr. Teralyn. Dr. Teralyn, thank you so much for being here.
Well, I am so excited to have this conversation.
I am too. I have just been loving right now we're in a theme in my podcast called Women's Health. And so it does sort of encompass a lot of different things, but I love your work so much. And I want to start because I was perusing your website. Okay. So on the homepage, like right in the very beginning, when you land on your website, drteralyn.com, I love that you say, the fact is, no matter what you've been told before, despite your age or stage in life, you can have an energetic, fun, loving, vivacious, make your own girlfriends jealous kind of life. So I'm curious about the no matter what you've been told part.
Oh my gosh.
What are you finding your clients have been told that make them feel discouraged or whatever they're feeling when they find you?
Well, firstly, I have to say, I am almost 54 years old.
Okay.
And so I have been through the ringer with things that I have been told throughout the aging process. That's why I put that on there, because we're told things like, as we age, we just kind of have to suck it up, really.
Yeah.
If you say I'm tired, we've been told things like, well, you've got a busy life and you've got kids and you've got all these things. And you're like, but I'm like, more tired than I should be, I feel.
Right. But I'm not 84. Yeah.
Exactly. Nor do I want to act like I'm 84. I was told these things when, I started going to the doctor after my second child was born. So I was in my 30s.
Okay.
And I'm like, why am I so tired? And there were no answers. The answers were those blatant things like, you're a mom, you're a new mom. And I'm like, but I just feel so much more tired than that. And now fast forward, the last time I went in with the whole fatigue thing was probably about 10 years ago or so. And I said, I'm so tired. And I walked out of an endocrinologist office with a prescription for an antidepressant, a sleep aid, and a stimulant, all in 20 minutes.
Oh, time. Wow. That sounds like very 1970s. Like 1960s.
Needless to say, as she was writing the scripts, I looked at her and I said, don't bother. I'm not going to be taking those. And she looked at me and she goes, then why are you here? And I was like, well, I don't know. I thought maybe you could help me, but clearly not. So
not really with uppers and downers.
No, right. I'm not Elvis Presley, or maybe that's aging me too much. But I don't want to be propped up in my life just to survive my life. I want to live it, So I found that in my own private practice that those are common things that women go through. We are searching for answers and we're just not getting anywhere. So I started diving into not just mental health stuff, but the functional medicine route and how nutrition impacts your brain health and your fatigue and your stress, how to manage your stress through different modalities. And so now here I am.
Yeah. In my experience, and my audience might be tired of hearing this story, but there might be like one or two of you that don't know. And part of the reason that I have asked you on and a couple other practitioners that are similar is I went through my own health journey similar to yours. And it was right at the onset of COVID. And I had just turned 45. So there was those two other big variables of like, is this just COVID stress? Is this perimenopause? Or is it something else? And it took 18 months to figure out it was something else, that I have Hashimoto's. And then I was just given a prescription for thyroid medication and was like sent on my way. And then I did a little bit more research and realized like, oh, there's this whole other answer that I can look for. It's like, what is the root cause? Like, why is my immune system going haywire? And so I'm in that right now. I just started seeing a functional medicine doctor and it is fascinating. What's funny though, is because like I'm 47 now and like I have heard about this whole like, I'm using air quotes, diet and exercise you speak of.
Exactly.
I'm kidding. But I think for many of us, we hear it and we're like, yeah, but we're in our 20s and 30s and eating Cheetos and Diet Coke and it's fine. We're resilient. But what I have found is that my body just isn't quite as resilient anymore. And so I think we just are kind of forced to like, someone's taking our head and turning our head towards, okay, you really need to look at your stress, your sleep, your hydration, your food, and exercise.
And all of that can be accumulated into the word stress, because stress is basically anything and everything. What you put in your body, what you surround your body with. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
when I talk about stress, I feel like we need to have a better definition of what that really means, because otherwise it seems so like, oh, it's stress. Well, thank you, Captain Obvious.
It's
Now
a big
what?
bucket. Mm-hmm. Well, how do you define stress?
Emotional stress.
Yeah.
So, all the emotions that we have, dietary stress. So the foods that you eat can be causing a stress load on your body,
Mm-hmm.
and hidden sources of inflammatory stress, which can be gut health related. It can be illness, injury type things. So those are the pretty big three pillars of what comprises of stress. And
Well,
that
oh,
emotional stress is also, interpersonal things and stuff like that too.
oh, sure. That's usually what we're talking about over here on this
Yeah.
podcast, is like the personal
Yeah.
development side. So my audience is
Yeah.
very well versed in that. Well, I would love to hear some stats, if you have them off the top of your head, which I'm sure you do because you talk about it a lot, around women's prescriptions for depression and anxiety, and maybe even menopause that we may not know about. Because I hear a lot of stories like yours, like mine, where women go in and they have these problems and they're like, here's an antidepressant, or here's, a sleep med. And what are do you have any like staggering stats for us?
Well, the biggest staggering stress, I'm sorry, staggering. I can't even speak today. I'm so sorry. Staggering stat. Geez. You know what helps with that? Omega-3 fatty acids. And I did not take them this morning.
For sale on Amazon, link in my bio.
Exactly, right? Exactly. The biggest thing that is concerning to me most is the amount of prescriptions for antidepressant and anti-anxiety medication for women in menopause and higher.
Mm-hmm.
That number is growing exponentially. And I don't even think we know exactly how many women take it for that purpose, right? It's just an overall prescription number. Like, God, what is it? I think it's more than 40% right now of women in that age category are on antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication for menopause.
Okay.
And I'm like, yes. And I'm like, if you go on, I don't know if you've ever been on any of these Facebook groups, but I'm on Facebook groups for menopause and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of women who are on antidepressants because they go to their provider for menopausal symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
I want to cry. Like I'm like, I want to cry. Why are we not fixing the real reason? And I understand that, our hormones change throughout our lifetime, and they continue to change. And we can't necessarily turn back the hands of time, but why do we have to accept feeling like garbage and taking an antidepressant, which changes the structure of our brain? Why do we have to accept that as our, outcome here? Why don't we fix it with, hormone replacement or bioidentical hormone replacement or supplementation or healthy lifestyle? Reducing our stress load impacts our cortisol, which also impacts our hormones.
Yeah.
So again, we go back to stress. How we can manipulate our stress load yields big outcomes in our brain health and our hormonal health. Why are we not doing that? Because antidepressants are easier.
And they're pretty cheap. I mean, most of them are, in terms of like prescription meds, which I know can be super expensive, but I think a lot of the antidepressants are, at least in my experience, under $10 a month.
Well, that is so true. And that's a huge barrier for so many people. I mean, I do bioidentical hormones and it is expensive.
Yeah. I
I
haven't yet, but I've heard that it's expensive.
Yeah. It can be very expensive. But at this stage of my life, I've also been on antidepressants and those made me feel worse. That was earlier on. That was postpartum stuff for me. That was, a 6-year journey of quote unquote postpartum depression just because I couldn't get off of them,
Okay.
But there's so many women who are just like that. You have, you can't, there's no tapering protocols and things like that because every person is uniquely physiologically different. So there's no one size fits all approach to tapering a med, which is why so many people, particularly women, are on these medications for a lifetime. I mean, there's, So, I mean, there's like twice as many women on antidepressants than men. We can say, well, men don't go to the doctor as frequently as women. I'm like, well, also, when men go to the doctor and they're complaining about libido problems, They're not going to get an antidepressant because that's going to cause more problems.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to get a little blue pill. A woman goes in and complains about libido problems, and she's going to get a stimulant and an antidepressant like me, you
Yeah.
know? So what is that?
Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. With Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers inline and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. Get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone, transform your tablet into a point of sale system, or use Shopify's POS Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/noise, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/noise to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/noise. It's hard to find a great mentor who can help me level up. My dream mentor, Shonda Rhimes. So I was really excited when I heard she has a class on Masterclass. With Masterclass, you can learn from the best to become your best. Masterclass is the only streaming platform where you can learn and grow with over 200 plus of the world's best. For just $10 a month, an annual membership with Masterclass gets you unlimited access to every instructor. And you can access Masterclass on your phone, computer, smart TV, or even in audio mode. I'm always looking for ways to be a better writer, so I took Shonda Rhimes' screenwriting class. It helped me gain concrete technical advice, including structuring, the writing process, and with shows under her belt like Grey's Anatomy and Bridgerton, it was so helpful. Plus, every new membership comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Don't wait another moment to start your learning journey with Masterclass. Right now, our listeners get an additional 15% off any annual membership at masterclass.com/Andrea. That's 15% off at masterclass.com/Andrea. Masterclass.com/Andrea.
What is
Well, this
up
is
with
like
that?
a side question. Do
Yeah.
men's hormones change? I know obviously they go through puberty and their hormones change, but do they change to the dramatic effect that women's do, like at any time in their life after puberty for men?
They can. I mean, and men's, especially testosterone, lowers as they age, of
Right.
course.
Mhm.
I don't think it's nearly as profound, though.
And it's primarily just testosterone for them, from what I understand.
Primarily,
Okay.
yep. But even their stress hormone, though, right? Their cortisol,
Yeah.
that can change. That's hormonal too. That
Mhm.
does impact your hormones, but it's definitely not as profound as a woman's. And because well, I mean, my poor husband, I always talk about him on podcasts. I'm like, my husband does this thing. I mean, he gets like night sweats and things like that, and that's a hormonal thing.
Hmm.
Kind of like a hot flash for a woman, but his is only in the nighttime.
Mhm.
So they do change, but just not as starkly, I would say.
I wanted to ask you this question at the very end, but now I'm feeling drawn to jump ahead a little bit, because I'm thinking about someone listening to this podcast episode who may be in that age range where she's either sure she's in perimenopause or menopause, or she might suspect that she's in perimenopause, and she's been put on an antidepressant for her symptoms, and she doesn't feel all that much better. Maybe she feels a little bit better, but it's suspicious that it might be something else, but doesn't know where to start. Because I know from my experience, it is overwhelming to look up hormone replacement therapy. And it's just like, what do I see my regular doctor? Do I see a functional medicine doctor? I don't even know what a functional medicine doctor is. Like, where do you recommend that they start?
So the first place that I tell people is go online and look up the Institute of Functional Medicine. They
Mhm.
have a provider database, and if you look for an MD, they can prescribe hormonal therapy. So that's how I found mine.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, it's a great resource. Of course, it's just one resource, but to me, I'm like, well, I'm not going to look up 17 different ones if I have a an MD provider near me on this
Yeah.
list, you know?
Mhm.
So the Institute of Functional Medicine is probably one of the top functional medicine schools out there. And a lot of people with health degrees can take those courses. But if you're looking for someone who could prescribe, make sure there's an MD at the end of their name,
Yeah.
you know, or a DO or something like that at the end of their name.
Okay. Got it.
It's just that it's just that easy, just as easy as you would look up any other doctor, you know, around. I think people are afraid of functional medicine doctors. I think there's fear in finances, of course, because most of them do not submit to insurances, but
Correct.
I use my health savings account. So we just load that sucker
That's
up,
what we did.
you know? Yeah. Every year I'm like, and my husband says, he's like, I am so glad we have that. You and me both.
Yeah.
You and me both. Mm-hmm.
That's what we did. And I was at a point where I was desperate and also knew that a functional medicine doctor was going to look at my diet. And probably it got to the point where it's like, do you want to feel better? Then you're going to have to make these changes. And
right. Which is counterintuitive, I have to say, because when you feel like garbage, like making changes is so difficult, right? When you are so fatigued, it is really difficult to make changes.
Because you're craving all of these foods or activities that really aren't helping you. I think the thing that, and maybe this is helpful for people listening. So I went to go see the functional medicine doctor. And even though I knew that her and her team were going to say, like, you really should cut out gluten, even though, because I've cut out gluten 2 different times in my life. And both times I didn't feel any different. I was a little tiny less bloated, but I didn't have more energy. Like I thought I was going to wake up and feel like $1,000,000
I got to tell you. So, but hold on a minute, because so I have been gluten-free for about 5 years. And so if I accidentally or not so accidentally decide that I want something glutinous, right? I pay for it the next 1 to 2 days in fatigue.
Okay.
Meaning, like, I thought I was going to have bloating stuff or gastrointestinal problems, you know, all of that. And I didn't. So when I first took gluten out of my life, well before this time, this last 5 years, I thought the same thing. And so I took it out for like 60 days and then I put it back in and I was like, well, I don't feel any different. You know, I was like, what is this gluten magic? You know, the next day I was so tired. I was like, could barely open my eyes tired. And I didn't connect it. I didn't connect it at all. And I was like, oh, I'm just having a really tired day. Right. Didn't connect it. And so I went back to the whole gluten thing and then the whole fatigue thing and, you know, obliviously was not connecting any dots. And then the second time I did it, gave it up. This time, I think it was just 30 days. I'm like, fine, I'll do it again. And I noticed the same thing, like 24 to 48 hours later, I just wanted to take a nap.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh my gosh, I think it's gluten. So I think the point is we look for certain symptomology. And if we don't see that, like, oh, it didn't upset my stomach. So, but I'm not going to see that I couldn't keep my eyes open and I wanted to take a nap the next day. You know, so looking outside of what you think is going to be typical for the whole gluten thing or whatever it is that you're doing with your food, we don't know that we feel like garbage until we don't feel like garbage and we look back.
Yeah.
You know, like, wow, I really felt like shit back then, you know, like it was terrible.
And the way she explained it to me is she said, you're right. You might not feel any different right now. She's like, but I can tell you, especially someone with an autoimmune disorder, eventually it will catch up with you. You know, it might be when you're 57 or when you're 67, but then you don't want to get to that place where you're starting to really feel the symptoms. And then it's going to be even harder for you to make changes. And so when she said that, I was like, God damn it. Like, I really want there to be evidence. I want I want it right in front of me. I don't want it to be like,
so journal out what you feel like now. And when you're 70, read the journal.
They keep telling me.
Exactly.
That's what they keep saying. Yeah. And I want to say this too, is that I was very pleasantly surprised that because there's also a nutritionist that works at this office that I've been talking to. And I came into the nutritionist's office and I said, all right, I'm going to be really transparent with you. I am grieving the fact that I have to change my diet. And she was like, of course you are. And I was like, oh my God, thank you.
Thank you. Exactly. Thank you for acknowledging that, that whole emotional piece of that. And
so emotional.
It's an interesting conversation to have, and I'm glad we're having it, because what I want to say is, we all vacillate in and out of, I'll say, health, like different levels of health and wellness. And it is definitely not a linear process. And even if you're doing all the right things, something may go wrong that you have to backtrack and figure out. Yeah. So last winter, I was not feeling well. I was so tired all winter long. And I'm in Wisconsin, and I know as I age, vitamin D, takes a toll and all this stuff. And I'm like, gosh, this winter is such a hard winter for me.
Well, Wisconsin gets like a dusting of snow, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, just a small dusting. And it's the skies are low hanging and gray, and it's just icky. But anyway, I just kept grinding, and I'm like, why do I feel so terrible? I had everything checked like 6 months prior, and I was like, wow, it's just, again, it must be because I'm getting old, all these things. Well, that's when I hit up a functional medicine doctor again, and my thyroid was in severe hypo. Like, it had not been hypothyroid like this in years. I still don't know why it got there. I have no idea. Could just be hormonal changes. Yeah. No clue. But I looked back and I was like, oh my gosh, no wonder. Yeah. No wonder I was feeling so terrible. And I knew I was feeling awful, but I just couldn't put my thumb on it because I felt like things had been managed for so long. Actually, also switched up thyroid medications, which I had been told previously, don't use the natural stuff. It won't work for you. You've been on this other stuff for so long. And I'm like, but I want to try it. Well, I tried it. And then I've been in hyperthyroid for the last half a year. And I'm like, holy crap. That's why my TikToks are amazing right now. Cause just kidding.
Manic.
Yes. I'm like, these are my manic TikToks versus last winter were my sluggish TikToks,
That's so interesting.
Yeah. So even when you think, you've got all the knowledge and you're on top of things, if you're not paying close attention, it can really sneak up on you and mess some things up. And, here I was slugging through the whole winter, just blaming it on winter right?
Blues.
Blaming it on winter, the blues, the age, all this stuff. And it turned out to be something real physiological.
I appreciate that. And one thing that I've learned on this health journey, and everyone, quick disclaimer, I am no thyroid expert. I do not have a medical degree. I just know my own body, is that I have gotten very familiar with my labs. And what I do now is I print everything out. And this is what brought me to kind of like demand to my general practitioner that I see an endocrinologist when I got diagnosed, was because I looked for patterns, because my labs kept coming back mostly normal, but I would be like on the border of, it'd be like subclinical levels. And I'm like, but I feel like shit and this shouldn't be happening. So I looked at the pattern, and I'm watching like from 2015. And I took out my highlighter and just started highlighting as watching my thyroid get higher and higher over the years, to the point where it was at 4.47. And for most doctors, you don't cross over into the high range until you're at 4.5. Yep. And so they were like, no, but you're going to strangle somebody.
Oh my gosh. I would have felt terrible. My thyroid was just little over 5. Yeah. Mine was a little over 5, and I was horrible the whole winter.
I could barely keep my eyes open. Another woman who's my age might be at that 4.47, and she might feel fine. And so what I have now come to understand is that some people, once they even cross over into 3 or 3.5 on their TSH for their thyroid, they might start feeling like shit. And so I say this to encourage people to really take a good look at your labs and like print them out and have them in a file. And if you can go back, and the portals have made things so much easier for us to get access to our records. And I never did that before and didn't need to. And so now I just kind of pour over and I'm Googling, like, what does this mean? And what does that mean? And does this have to do with this? And I'm kind of getting my own quasi degree in labs. But I think it's important to figure out like what numbers you need to be at to where you feel good, because it might not look different. It might look different from someone else, or even what's in their range.
Oh yeah. The thyroid number that I feel the best at is 1.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
1. I was over
Mine's around
5.
2.5.
Yeah, I was over, see, even 2.5. So one of my friends came to me and she's like, can you just take a look at the labs? And I'm like, sure, I'll take a look. And her thyroid was around 3. And she's like, I just can't figure out why I'm so tired. I said, it could be partly this number here.
Yeah.
Maybe that number is not your optimal number, even though, the doctor's like, well, you're in range, it didn't flag anything.
Right.
But are you in your range? Do you even know what your range is? Because you guys, you are more than a sum of a lab value.
Oh, yeah.
Your lab value,
That's a
your lab
tweetable.
value could be complete. All right, I can't wait to see that one. But you are more than that. You have to figure out where your best self lives within those value ranges. And that's a tough thing unless you really start tuning in. Like you looked back. Yeah, you looked back and you're like, wow, this is when I was feeling good. This is when I wasn't feeling so good. Yeah. Like, wow, my value is right around here.
And it took feeling pretty desperate for me to do that. I wanted some answers and wasn't getting them and had to take it into my own hands. I want to switch gears slightly though and talk about the brain. And in your experience and your expertise, what do you consider brain health?
What don't I consider brain health, I think would be a more important question. Pretty much anything in the brain. If you don't have a brain, you've got nothing. Just kind of like if you don't have a heart, you cannot live. Like if you don't have a brain, you cannot live. And that is the one organ that unless you have like migraine headaches or you've suffered a traumatic brain injury or stroke, nobody's really talking about it. And yet it is the one organ that you need to have thought processes, moods, everything is centralized in your brain. So unless we start taking care of the health of our brain through our thoughts, right? Again, we go back to those pillars. So our thoughts, our emotions, and the biggest one that is missed is food. Primarily when you think of food, like regulating your blood sugar is huge for brain health. And that is a very basic concept. So, how can you easily regulate blood sugar? Well, eat protein every 2 to 3 hours. So protein and blood sugar are the two biggest things. Now you can get granular with leafy greens and things like that, but most people, when they're struggling, they're barely eating anything. And they're definitely not eating things of nutritional value. And certainly their blood sugar is off a lot. So just straightening that up, like straightening up your blood sugar, hydration a little bit more, blood sugar and proteins. And, proteins are the building blocks of your neurotransmitters. So when you eat protein, you are actually improving your serotonin and dopamine. And I've also found that so many, I'll just talk about women, but men too, who struggle with fatigue. Like when you get prescribed an antidepressant, it's targeting serotonin, right? It's targeting, so an SSRI is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So it's targeting how your serotonin moves between neurons, right? Well, here's the thing. Cortisol, your stress hormone, is implicated in your dopamine pathway, which is your reward pathway, your giddy up and go, your drive, your motivation. So if you go to the doctor and you complain that you've got low energy and fatigue, and they're like, oh, you must be depressed. I'm like, or you need to optimize your dopamine pathway, right? So it's very different than just saying you're depressed. You need more happy serotonin. No, I need more drive. I need more energy, right? And so that cortisol and the dopamine pathway is a strong implication there. You need cortisol to create adrenaline and noradrenaline within that pathway. So if you are running low on cortisol, and here's the other thing, most people think that if they're under stress, they're running high on cortisol. Well, sure, in the beginning, when you reach my age, you are low. you've got nothing else. Like you maybe have like a
Is it kind of
spurt.
like gas in the tank type of thing? Or
Kind of like gas in the
okay.
tank. Yes, it's a lot like gas in the tank.
Huh.
Now you're running on fumes at this point,
We call
you
that
know.
angel farts in our house. Running
That's
on
so
angel
funny because in
farts,
my
yeah.
brain I was going to say, should I say fart or
Yeah,
not
yeah, you
on
can
here?
say whatever you
Yeah, I
want.
can say fart. Okay, good.
Today's podcast is sponsored by MIDI Health. Ladies, are you over 40 like me and dealing with hot flashes, insomnia, brain fog, moodiness, some vaginal dryness, or weight gain? Don't just accept it as part of aging. These symptoms are often linked to hormonal changes during perimenopause and menopause. At MIDI Health, they get it. Their experts know what you're going through and how to help. MIDI clinicians are menopause specialists offering safe, effective, FDA-approved solutions. And guess what? MIDI care is covered by insurance. So stop pushing through it alone. Schedule a virtual visit and dive deep into your unique symptoms and health background. You'll walk away feeling heard and with a plan to start feeling better. Visit MIDI Health today and reclaim your well-being. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com. joinmidi.com. You know when you're listening to a song on the radio and you get the profound feeling that the song playing was written about you? Now imagine having the power to gift that same incredible feeling to someone you love with an original song from Songfinch that actually is written just for them. Songfinch lets you create an original radio quality song inspired by your own life and the people you love. It's completely unique, personal, and lasts forever. Whether your song is for Father's Day, an upcoming graduation, wedding, or anniversary, or even just a gift to show your loved one how much you care, start your song now to lock in one of Songfinch's top artists. I gifted Songfinch to myself, a song about my late father, and I'm so excited to play you a clip.
Flipping through the slides of learning how to live and how to love, and coming undone a father daughters without, so she writes it down.
One of my clients heard about Songfinch from this podcast, and so she had a song created for her son who was graduating, and she told me that they both cried when she played it for him and that it exceeded her expectations. For a limited time, Songfinch is letting our listeners upload their song to Spotify for free, so you and the lucky person you gift it to can listen to it anywhere, anytime. Go to songfinch.com/noise and start your song. After you purchase, you'll be prompted to add Spotify streaming for your original song for free, a $50 value. Again, my URL is songfinch.com/noise. Don't forget to share your song with us too. songfinch.com/noise.
But that's brain health, and understanding your pathways and what your body needs is like next generation brain health, right? In the early stages, we're just really looking at brain fuel. And brain fuel can also be like, I hate the word toxic, but I'm going to use it, like a toxic work environment or even a relationship that you know you shouldn't be in, but you are, right? All of that is brain fuel. All of it. It's not just one thing.
Yeah.
So again, we can't work our way out. We can't think our way out of of shitty nutritional status, and we cannot nutrition our way out of crappy relationships, right? So we have to kind of take a step back globally and look at our lives and say, like, what is it that's causing me the most duress in my life, and make changes from there too. I years ago, before I went into private practice, it's been over a decade now, which just floors me. I left my state job, the sure thing job, and I left that to go into private practice, but I left it. Well, that was when I went to the doctor and she gave me all the meds. And I remember driving home, and I got into the driveway and I walked in the house and I looked at my husband straight up. He was sitting on the couch and I was standing in front of him, and I said, okay, so I can medicate my way through this job, or I can quit my job and do something else. And he looked at me and he goes, "You're quitting your job."
Yeah.
And I said, "You're right. You're right. I am." And it changed everything. So, and I know I feel, people are like, well, I can't quit my job. And I'm like, I didn't think I could either.
Mhm.
I didn't think that was even an option. But what is the value of staying?
Yeah.
Or what is the price you pay when you stay in situations you shouldn't be in? Well, your brain, your brain is the price you pay.
Your well-being.
And yeah, again, your well-being. Like I don't want to have brain problems when I'm 70, I don't. And sometimes, kind of flipping the conversation back to menopause, like some of the things that I've experienced in menopause and a lot of people also have are brain functioning problems, like inability to find certain words.
Yeah.
Like it's funny because I'll like look at something, I'll be like, I want to talk about my phone, and I'll say, the thing that you dial and you call people on, like I can't find the word phone, but all of those things tell me that something is up. Usually it's a blood sugar issue or an omega-3 fatty acid issue. That helps me with word finding so much. And
okay, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I
Mhm.
want to ask about supplements that are the most helpful to the brain. And I do not want to let you go before I ask you this very specific question. Do you have a recommendation for an omega-3 supplement that does not give you fish burps?
Oh my God. You mean like a brand? You want me to like say a brand here?
Yeah.
Is that what you're looking for?
Yes. No, because
Am I okay to say brand?
Yeah, I don't think you have a supplement line. So it's like nobody's making any commission. Like if it's an Amazon link, then somebody's going to make 5 cents. It's like, it's not.
Right,
But yeah,
right.
every single one that I found gives me fish burps. And it's just, oh, I can't stomach it.
Okay. Well, first thing I have to tell people is do not go to a big box retailer and buy 2 for 1.
Don't get
Okay?
them at Costco. Mm-hmm.
Don't get them at Costco. Actually, I did a whole series on this on my TikTok. We love Costco, just not for their omega-3s. But anyway, I did a whole TikTok video on this where I compared different brands just for the EPA, DHA values on omega-3 fatty acids, and found out that you had to eat like 40 of them, okay, to get the value that you yeah. And I was like, no wonder they're 2 for 1. You have to eat a lot of these things like to get there. So
Wow.
you kind of have to know what you're looking for in the values, but also some of the fish burp stuff has to do with the quality of the fish oil itself.
Okay.
So honestly, using the higher quality stuff, I mean, there's a couple different brands. Nordic Naturals usually is okay, but sometimes that gives me burps. But I really do love Designs for Health. Designs for Health has wonderful omega-3s. I've never had a problem with them. My husband doesn't have a problem with them. So I just kind of stick with what works for me.
Okay.
But higher quality is going to yield better results. Unfortunately, it is true, especially with supplementation and especially with omega-3 fatty acids.
Okay.
So don't go cheap.
I've heard if you put them in the freezer, that might help, or that might have been, don't quote me on that.
I've not had success because I have tried. When I went on vacation, so last year I took a 6 weeks of self-discovery and I just kind of left my life for 6 weeks, and I did not pack any supplements, so I had to purchase them. So I went to the store and I purchased some, and I believe that they were Nordic Naturals. Sorry, okay. Nordic Naturals. But anyway, I threw those suckers in the freezer. I did all these things, and I kept thinking, like, did I just eat tuna? What's going on here? Because I haven't experienced that for so long but because I changed brands, that's what happened to me. So, you kind of have to find the brand that works for you, that you don't get that icky
I actually, there was one brand that I had bought for my kids when they were younger I think it's called Barlean's, and it's a liquid.
Yeah, Barlean's. Yep.
And it comes in lemon, I think is the one that I got. And it was pretty tasty, actually. And I used to mix it in their yogurt. And it was expensive,
or
though.
Smoothie or anything. Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
I feel like it was expensive.
So, Designs for Health also has the liquid stuff too. It's called Omega Veil, but it is expensive. And again, you need a lot of them. Well, kids don't need as much as adults, but we're looking at like 1,500 to 3,000 combined EPA DHA, which is on the label on the back. The front of the bottle will say 2,000 milligrams of fish oil. And then when you look at the EPA DHA, it'll say 10. You're like, oh my gosh, no, no. So you do need a high quality, and you do need more of it. There's a disclaimer here. If anybody is on blood thinners. You got to get permission from your doctor to use omega-3s because they do have some blood thinning effects. So that's really what the only side note to that. But otherwise, they really, if I can tell when I don't take them, as far as like my thoughts, like and word retrieval is the biggest one, so
yeah,
it's
word
crazy.
retrieval is getting trickier for me. I've noticed in the last handful of years, and I'm not on a fish
omega.
oil. I'm not.
Yeah,
so
try
I will look
it.
into that. I will.
Yes.
Okay. I have one more question for you before we close up, and I'm curious if you could tell us what's like one or two of the most helpful things that you can think of that someone could do to help their mental well-being.
There are four big ones.
Okay.
All right. So there's four big ones. And when I say these four, you guys are gonna be like, really, here we go again. What I want to say is pick one of these pillars and start working from there before you add to the next one. Okay. So eat, sleep, move, meditate. So nutrition, again, we talked about blood sugar regulation as a starting point and protein as a starting point. That's it. Don't think about nutrition in terms of weight loss. Think about nutrition in terms of brain health. Okay. So eat, sleep. So most of us, and I've done it too, are up scrolling social media till all hours of the night. It's like the rabbit hole that you fall down every night.
Speaking of dopamine and serotonin.
Yeah, right. That does not help your sleep. Exactly. Called sleep hygiene. And you can look up easy sleep hygiene things to do. I think the National Sleep Center has a really nice sleep hygiene download to look at. Again, there's a ton of things on the list. Pick one or two, try that, and be consistent. So movement, find something you enjoy or can at least tolerate, like just going for a walk. Those are easy things. In the winter, it gets more challenging. Last year, I was having a funky last year anyway, but I had to go buy myself the appropriate gear because I kept convincing myself that it was too cold to go outside. So I'm like, I'm going to buy all the clothes so I will not be cold and I have no excuse. So I did that. So find something. And we're looking at starting with 15 minutes, right? 15 minutes. And then meditation is the last one. And a lot of us get that wrong in the Western world because people go, I can't meditate because I cannot clear my mind. Well, when I was on my 6 weeks to self-discovery, I actually learned how to meditate with some Buddhist priests, which was a pretty cool experience. I was like, wow, I was doing this all wrong. I was doing it all wrong. It's really just an individual sustained attention on your breath. Okay. And then you just bring your breath back if your mind wanders. If it wanders off, it might water. You might have watery eyes or whatever. But, so I just started with 5 minutes because it takes your body about 5 to 7 minutes to recognize that it's not being chased by a bear and there's no threat. Okay. So start with 5 to 7 minutes of just breathing and focusing on your breath in and out for 5 to 7 minutes and start with that. So we have eat, sleep, move, meditate.
Eat, sleep, move, meditate. I love it. Thank you so much. Before we close, is there anything that you wanted to circle back to that you feel like you forgot to mention or wanted to tie up, or do you feel complete?
I feel very complete.
You feel complete. Okay. Yes, I am so glad. I appreciate you, and tell everyone where you want them to go to learn more about you. Where can they find you on the internets?
I would guess that so many of your listeners are on TikTok. So if you haven't already, head over to TikTok and it's Dr. Teralyn. That is my name across all social media. That's probably the biggest place you can find me.
Dr. Teralyn on TikTok. And then all these links will be in the show notes, everybody, even the supplements that we talked about, as well as Dr. Teralyn's website. Thank you again so much for being here. I have enjoyed you and this conversation, and I've really been enjoying the women's theme of, or the theme of women's health, I should say. And listeners, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time and know how valuable it is. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye for now, everybody.
Hey, did you know there's free secret podcast episodes waiting for you that are not part of my regular podcast feed? Yes, AndreaOwen.com/free. And you just sign up. You get a link sent to you. It's very secret. It's like a secret club. We don't have a secret handshake. Don't worry about that. But it's these motivating podcast episodes that I made for you. They're under 20 minutes each. There's 3 of them. They're for wherever you are in your life. So head on over there and grab them. They range from really supporting you and seeing you where you are and being compassionate, all the way to giving you a giant kick in your ass and telling you how amazing and gorgeous and phenomenal you are. So AndreaOwen.com/free and get your hands on that free podcast feed.
I'd like to introduce you to the Minimalist Moms podcast. It's hard enough being a mom, and the last thing you need is stress from too much stuff and an overcrowded schedule. For too long, I lived with the mindset that bigger was better, and the more I added to my life, instead of feeling better, I felt overwhelmed. It was time for a radical new mindset. Less is more. I'm not into extremes. I didn't throw everything away. My brand of minimalism is more about adding than subtracting. Get rid of the excess to make room for what you love. In other words, it's about living life with purpose. I hope you'll listen in, and my guest and myself can inspire you to think more and do with less. The Minimalist Moms podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts.